Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Warrior Lunch Break here on HBC TV 25. Thank you for joining us. I'm Justin Barrientos, and today on the show we have Pete Watkins, who is the Director of Athletic Communications at Winona State. We have Matt Kellogg, who is the women's soccer coach, and Mason Rebarchek, the track and field coach at Winona State. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to start. We're going to start with Pete Watkins to lead off, and because he has the most recent news, which just came out earlier this week. The NSIC released their men's and women's basketball schedules, and Pete, I'll kind of let you take it from there. It's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past.
It is, yeah. It'll be a little bit of an adaptation, I think, for all our programs. What the league decided to do is move to single gender sites. So in all competition, the men's team would play at home, the women's team would travel to that same school, but at the opposite site. Premise being obviously to make it safer from a COVID standpoint, less people around, just less opportunities for positive tests, not only affecting one team, but 2 or 3 other teams as well. So league had talked about it for a while, and this really seemed to make the most sense to give us the best chance to play basketball seasons this year. For us, what that's done is our dates of competition have stayed the same, but our site hosts will be different. So to open up the season, our women will host Minnesota Duluth here, while the men will travel to Duluth, playing on a Saturday, Sunday, January 2nd and 3rd. So as folks go to our website, they'll see changes in date or no changes in dates, but it's important to know whether you're staying here in town or trying to watch it online somewhere, to pay attention to that. So the league, when they came out with it, we've been given a little bit of a heads up that could be the decision. And as of right now, and things do change in 2020 for certain, that's our plan moving forward. And we're looking forward to getting the season going.
And of course, the first weekend is a Saturday-Sunday matchup because of New Year's Day, which everybody would be off, but then it's still going to be Friday-Saturday, correct, after that?
Correct, yeah, and that'll be kind of one nice sense of normalcy, I think, for our teams in terms of travel, shoot-arounds, those types of things. And we are playing just within the Southern Division this year, so it's a division-specific schedule. And there's going to be a NSIC preseason rollout next week, where we'll hear about players of the year, players to watch for each team, and some other tidbits on each program. So we're looking forward to that. With announcements coming from the governor and Minnesota State and other things, like everybody these days, we're paying attention to our screens and seeing if things change. But as of right now, we're looking forward to hosting basketball.
All right, and from what I've seen, apparently Monday is when the governor is going to make his announcement on whether the December 18th date is extended or if the mandate from the governor expires on the 18th. So we'll kind of be waiting for that and to see what happens. It may be too early to ask this, but do we have any idea if there is going to be postseason or if it's just a regular season, Pete?
We have not heard that there won't be, is probably the best way to put it. So yeah, we're very hopeful that we'll have as normal a season and postseason as possible. Certainly the vaccine and elements related to that are certainly going to affect that with rollout and all those factors for sure. So, yeah, we're hopeful that we'll see it there, and the league has done a fantastic job in keeping everybody informed and up to date and helping us get information out in as timely a manner as possible.
All right, and then kind of the last point on this, we talked to Eric Scho last week on the show. I imagine the answer is still the same. You're expecting to have no fans for the games unless something happens with the governor's announcements?
Right, that's correct. Everything will be available online streaming, and obviously live stats and some of those avenues, but there will not be fans in the stands in any gyms. That's not just a Winona State issue, but it's going to be the protocol moving forward. Again, that could change for the positive. We'd love it to be the case. Just looking around the collegiate sports scene right now, it's pretty unlikely that we'd see that roll out. But as of right now, it'll be online only, and we're looking forward to being able to provide that to our Warrior fans.
All right, thank you for that update. We'll move on now to Matt Kellogg to talk women's soccer at Winona State. And unfortunately, your season was canceled because of all the COVID things. So tell us a little bit about what you were able to do this season and how your fall has gone.
Well, we kind of took the approach as a staff that we wanted to, these kids have, they've just gone through, the whole range of emotions. They've had stuff taken away. Now, wait, we're going to be able to do it, and then no, you're not. And dates kept changing, and it was just, it was pretty depressing at times. And so, as a staff, we kind of had two main goals. Is one, don't mess it up for the rest of the department. We wanted to make sure that our kids weren't the ones that were going to be doing silly things and making poor decisions, with social distancing and face coverings. And hats off to our kids. They did a great job of that. And then as a staff, we just wanted to make sure that we really had fun with the game and just, kind of take the pressure. We don't have a fall where we have to win or, there's, who's playing and how much am I playing and all that kind of stuff. And we really just wanted to get the kids out there and just have fun with the sport again. And I think we did that. And I think you could see once we started to train and there was really no pressure of the games and everything that goes along with that, the kids just, I think they flourished. I think they what they got in that hour and a half or 2 hours on the field kept them going the rest of their day. And, we had that little bit of normalcy and fun and enjoying life. And that got them to the next day. And it got them through their chaotic world that they had to navigate with classes and stuff. So that's kind of our approach to the fall. And I think we did a great job of that. I think the players did a fantastic job of dealing with all the ups and downs and uncertainty that they lived with.
I'm glad that you brought in the trying to get back to normal, because my next question is kind of how normal were you able to run any type of practices? We were talking with Todd Eisner from the men's basketball team last week, and he said some of their drills they've had to put chairs out on the floor instead of having actual human competition even within their own team, just so that they don't have any surprises or anything. So how normal were you able to run your practices?
The first half of the fall season was a bit unique with playing in pods and keeping, limited contact between different groups on the team. So that was a little bit contrived. But I'd say about halfway through the season, things started to look pretty normal. There'd be an occasion where somebody had to leave early for class, but those are things that we have to deal with already. So, every once in a while you'd see a coach out there playing in goal, that type of thing. But, I'd say by and large, once we kind of got into the meat of the season, nothing held us back.
All right. So now your team is going to be dealing with eligibility things. You're going to get the extra year of eligibility. I think you have 3 seniors on your roster. Do you know who will be coming back and using that extra year of eligibility?
At this point, nothing is set in stone. Some players, one of our seniors was battling an injury, so she's coming back, and it's going to kind of see how she's progressing through the spring to see if she wants to stay in the fall. Our other 2 kids, academically, they're pretty sure that they're going to be back, but again, nothing's set in stone. Whatever happens with that group, with 3 of them, we can absorb it relatively easily. The real issue for us is the next several years and that ripple effect of this free season, if you will, because those classes are much larger. Mm-hmm. So now, you got a class of 9 kids. If half of them decide that they want to play a 5th year, that now all of a sudden throws quite a wrinkle. And unfortunately, the biggest issue as I see it is that we may not know until the spring of their junior year, whether, or the spring of their senior year, they may come back for a 5th year. So we may not know until the very last minute. And with the way the recruiting is going in soccer, you're really looking at sophomores and juniors in high school. You're no longer looking at just the senior class of high school graduates. So you're really looking 2, 3, 4 years out for your recruiting groups. And needless to say, there's a lot of what ifs, and if this happens, and if this happens, and if Susie stays, and if Susie goes, what are we going to do? And then not only are you talking about just flat out roster spaces, now, you're talking about athletic aid gets thrown into the equation as well. And do we have money left? Do we not? Where do we invest it? So it's quite an issue that has been triggered by this free season. And I call it, the law of unintended consequences. And I think the spirit of it was great. And, as with every decision, there's some things that, oh, wait, we didn't think about that. And you're just going to have to work your way through it. And, the approach we're taking is being upfront with the kids and saying, here's where we're at. Where are you at? And just staying in touch and keeping those lines of communication open so that we know when decisions are made and we can go on from there.
How much of your time do you anticipate that is going to kind of eat up rather than being able to focus on planning a practice, game planning down the line? Is that going to be a major issue for you, trying to figure out some of these extra things?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, one more thing that kind of gets put on your plate. But as coaches, there's always one more thing. That's our world that we live in. All of a sudden, this kid is in academic issue. There's a problem between your goalie and your defender or your midfielder that all of a sudden came up out of nowhere. So, that's what I tell people is that the life of a head coach is putting out fires. There is nothing predictable about our job. That's the life of the assistant coach, and the head coach is constantly putting out fires in those. Wait, where'd that come from? I thought we had this money, now we don't. All those different situations. So it's just par for the course as a coach.
All right, and then I believe you have 5 players coming in for next season that you've already signed. And I think it's going to be uniform among all the sports that this next season is kind of like a redshirt season for some of those that are incoming. Or are you able to redshirt anybody next season?
I mean, we can. Nothing has changed for us. We can redshirt the incoming freshmen if we want. Quite honestly, I see every single one of our incoming kids in the 21 class being able to compete for minutes right away. We're bringing these kids in to compete, and I really do think that this is a strong group that has that ability. Whether that pans out that way or not, we'll see. The most interesting one is that we have 2 goalies coming in. You can play with 10 field players, you can only play with 1 goalie. So having 2 in 1 class presents a unique situation where, on the surface you would think, okay, somebody's probably not going to play. But we'll see what happens. But no, we can play everybody, and everybody has the ability to come in and play right away for sure.
All right, and if I'm correct, September 17th, 2021 is the next scheduled match for Winona State. I imagine you probably have that circled on a calendar somewhere. And so what do you do between now and then? Because it seems like a lot of time to have. What happens with Winona State soccer between now and then?
Our biggest thing is we're kind of going about business as usual, in the sense of one of the main things that we focus on in our spring is our team culture and our leadership. And that's not going to change. We're going to take the opportunity, if we have spring season or not spring season, how many games, whatever that is, our focus is still going to be about our culture. Mm-hmm. Because it's my belief that if you have all the talent in the world but your team is a disaster in the culture department, you're never going to maximize your ability on the field. If you're one group and unified and everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction, you're going to far surpass your talent as individuals when you play as one team. So that's really our focus. We're reading a couple books right now as staff, trying to figure out some different things that we want to implement. But that's the top priority. And then the second priority is really just trying to get the freshmen college experience. We hope to play some games so they can actually play in a college game before they're actually sophomores. So that's our second goal, is just trying to get the whole team up and running at the college level, because even for all of our returners, it's been quite a while since they've played a college game.
All right, we'll move on to track and field and Mason Rebarchek, and here we are talking about when soccer is going to play their next game. but for you, you don't have a schedule yet for when your next competition is going to happen. And I kind of wanted to go kind of behind the scenes. I mean, what kind of goes into creating a schedule for your team?
Yeah, as far as our schedule goes, we normally would have had a meet this last weekend, first weekend in December, and obviously everything's canceled for now. So we're one weekend past when we would normally start. And as you guys have said, and everybody knows, the world changes so fast. You never know when the governor's going to have something new, or the Department of Health, or who knows when things are going to change. And so, in any year, it's a matter of coaches. We all kind of reach out to each other. If there's a place we want to go for a meet, or coaches have a meet they're putting on, they'll email out to everybody and say, hey, who wants to come to this meet? And a lot of our meets are 8 to 15 teams is a pretty typical meet for us. We would rarely have one less than 8, can sometimes be more. And it's just a lot of years we go to the same meets over and over again, or if a meet becomes less competitive or than we would like to be, maybe we'll cut that one out, or things like that. And so unlike the ball sports that your conference schedule is set by the league, our whole schedule is set by us. And so as far as this year goes, and I'm kind of on the outside of this because we don't have an indoor facility, so I'm not in regular communication with MDH about what do I need to do to host a meet. So I'm kind of hearing from the coaches who are, and it looks at this point, depending on if anything new happens between now and January 15th, but at this point it's looking like dual meets only, which I know for those who were in college in the 70s and earlier, that's what track and field was back then. And so I think the older generation probably would be pretty excited about seeing a lot of dual meets in track and field. But so at this point we're looking at dual meets only. And there aren't a lot of high quality facilities in the Northern Sun in terms of hosting meets. There's a lot of undersized tracks or 4-lane tracks when we typically compete on, 200-meter track would be a normal indoor, and 6 lanes or even 8 lanes would be normal. So there's a lot of places in our league that have a track, but it's not necessarily one that you'd normally compete on. So we're kind of looking at who gets to host when, and those who have tracks are basically hosting every weekend. And those of us who don't are sort of at the mercy of the schools that do. And the other thing is, being that we're doing dual meets, we don't have a men's team. So for us to go to Mankato for a dual meet, it doesn't make sense for Mankato, because if we're there on the women's side, their men's team is off. So the other women's only programs in the Northern Sun are St. Cloud and Bemidji. So the head coaches at those schools and I have had several conversations about how do we work out a system of kind of rotating dual meets, and Bemidji's still kind of waiting on some final answers from their facilities people, and I'm not sure what the new basketball schedule, if that adds a wrinkle for them. I think there's plenty of space in the hallway from their indoor track to their basketball arena that hopefully both events could go on at the same time. So that's kind of a new wrinkle, but we're just kind of having conversations and hoping to put some things together in the coming weeks so that by January 1, hopefully we have something out there that we can tell our athletes where we're going to be and things like that. So, but as of now, the NCAA championships are on. We're able to qualify for that. So kind of the main goal now is to get as many meets as we can for everybody on the team to compete. And then, of course, get some opportunities for people to qualify for nationals. That would be middle of March.
So how have your athletes kind of been affected by COVID? Because obviously in any sport, you're going against somebody else, but in track and field, if you're practicing, you're kind of trying to best your time, but you don't really have a great idea of what somebody else is doing out there and what their best time is. So how have your athletes been affected by only having to try to best their own times?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact for us this fall has been just the late start. Normally we start right after Labor Day, and with the way the university kind of did, I forget the word we used, it's sort of a soft roll into the school year with doing sort of that quarantine around Labor Day and things like that. So we, and the weight room was shut down, and that's kind of our main off-season training is in the weight room. And so just not having those opportunities and finding other ways to train. So having about a 3-week late start and then kind of that slow roll in, and just like soccer did, we kept everybody in small groups, and a lot of it was based on who their roommates are. We've got a lot of girls that room with 3 other girls on the team, and even if they're not in the same event group and would normally train together, we needed to keep them together just for exposure risk and all that kind of stuff. So we just put the girls in groups of 6 or smaller based on who their roommates are, and and I had a lot more hours of practice in a day for the coaches. I don't think the athletes noticed the difference, but we had more hours in the day that we were out at the track training, and so we got a late start. Right now, we would normally be in week 14, I think. We're in week 11 right now. But I got to tell you, I've been really, really impressed, with the ladies. They've been so committed to trying to stay safe. And, we've had very few issues of positive tests. Most of them came before we started practice, end of August, early September. And, it's just been really great to see, them working so hard and trying to keep their academics where they need to be. And kind of like Matt said a little bit ago, when they come to practice, their spirits are lifted. Those 3 weeks or so where we were supposed to be practicing, but we weren't. When I'd see the girls, they were just down, I don't know if I'd use the word depressed, but just bummed out that we weren't training. And just that first day back, even though it was with a small group and they didn't get to see the rest of their team, just knowing that they could be together at the track, doing some training, that really lifted everybody's spirits. And I got to think it helped them academically and with their general mental health as well, just being able to train. And so we've really had 11 great weeks of training. And I feel like if things progress in the way they are right now, and we're able to start back together as a team first Monday in January, I'm really excited for what this group can accomplish. I feel like we're fit and ready to get after it again. So hopefully the schedule works out and we have those opportunities and everything happens the way it's hopefully progressing right now.
How has the weather kind of affected your athletes? Because we've kind of had a fairly mild winter to start here. There's no snow on the ground anymore. So, I mean, can your athletes really get a good practice in outdoors right now, because they may not be able to practice too much indoors at this point?
Right. So, we definitely had some nice weather in October and November when we normally wouldn't. So that definitely kept us outside a lot longer. With pretty much every campus in the Midwest not allowing outside people on their campuses, St. Mary's has not become an option for us to train indoor. Thankfully, about 5 or 6 years ago, we bought a bunch of, Jeff Renardi in the Wellness Center and his staff and his budget bought a bunch of kind of unique treadmills that are much better suited to track and field training than a standard motorized treadmill. So what we've done is sort of moved inside and I've been able to use those treadmills. And, although the governor's executive order has closed, gyms and weight rooms around the state, he's allowed college athletics to continue, obviously. And so thankfully we have been able to get into the weight room. And so what's keeping us indoors today when it's 40, 45 degrees out and it might be a decent day to get outside, I need to be with them in the wellness center. And so I can't have a running workout outside with my 1 o'clock group and then send them to the weight room. I need to be in the IWC with them. So we're just doing everything inside right now. I'll have my 1 o'clock group on the treadmills and then they'll head downstairs to lift when my 2 o'clock group comes in and then we just kind of roll through the day. So although yesterday, I guess Tuesday and today could have potentially been outdoor days, it's really been just sort of get the work done on the treadmills and then head downstairs to lift. So I've told the ladies we could run outside, but we won't be able to lift. And they all are like, nope, we need to be in the weight room. So we're staying inside.
All right. I want to just touch a little briefly on recruiting for you in track and field. How does this move forward for you? And do you kind of see that kind of logjam of athletes that the other sports are kind of seeing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year, just recruiting in general. In track and field, the bulk of our recruiting is end of their junior year through about now. And the fact that none of the kids we're recruiting had a junior year, I mean, we're looking at sophomore numbers and just trying to project the best we can based on getting to know a kid, if we think they'll be committed and what kind of upside we think they'll have. And so that's been interesting leading up to this point. Going forward, I think with a spring sport, it's a little different than a fall sport. For a soccer athlete to add another year, they're adding 1 semester potentially to their college career, or maybe they were already planning on 4.5 years, but not a lot of kids plan on 5 full years of school. Our education majors, I often tell them plan on 4.5 so that you can do your student teaching that last half a year, but not a lot of kids stick around for a full 5. So I think like Matt said earlier, it's going to be sort of a year by year, who's going to take advantage of that last year of eligibility that they have. And I have one senior who thought that she wasn't, and now all of a sudden, not only did she get last year's outdoor back, but now she has this year's indoor back. And she's like, boy, I was going to graduate, but man, maybe I could pick up a second minor or start grad school or something like that, to push it to get that extra year. So like Matt said, sort of a person by person, year by year, and we'll just kind of roll with it as it happens.
All right, and last question for you. Have you even begun to think about the outdoor season yet, or is everything kind of focused on trying to figure out what's going to happen indoor?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about outdoor until last week, talking to Bemidji's head coach, just the idea that we're the furthest south of the women's only program. So while we're talking to Bemidji about trying to get up to their place indoor, I told them, hey, you guys in St. Cloud, come on down every week if you want, and we can host outdoor. So that's really the first outdoor conversations. And then Mike Turgeon over at Mankato, obviously he and I are good friends, having coached together here for a long time. He and I have talked a couple times about, not knowing what the travel restrictions might look like for outdoor season. We're probably all just going to stick inside the state and find ways to compete the outdoor season in state and assume that we're going to have dual meets. And if it opens up to larger, we'll cancel some meets and have bigger meets at some of the better facilities.
All right, so everything pretty much on the fly right now.
Absolutely, no doubt.
All right. Pete, let's get back to you for just a second to kind of get an update on the online auction. As we said, a lot of your fundraising things kind of went by the wayside, except for the golf tournament and maybe a couple of other things. But you guys have an online auction that's now going for another couple of days. How is that looking right now?
Yeah, correct. We're kind of about 2/3 of the way through it, and it'll wrap up on December 13th. We just passed the $10,000 mark, I think earlier today, actually. And typically these auctions, especially online auctions, I think that last couple of hours will be, probably the big flurry of activity for that. There's several items on there. We've had a couple new items go up as well. So we're encouraging folks to go back and take a look at the page and see not only their bids from before, but if there's anything new that's there. And for the Warrior Club, for us, it's really important from a scholarship standpoint, because as you mentioned, we have lost some events over the past 6-7 months that normally would yield some funds for us. So like our coaches and our student athletes, it's kind of forcing people to pivot a little bit, but I think we've been able to recoup some of those funds and finding other ways to reach out to Warrior Club current members and hopefully some new members as well. But if folks go to our website, they'll see an icon on there that they can click, and it takes them right to the auction page. And that's where we're trying to direct our traffic right now as people are looking. So, but all of those funds, proceeds go directly to student athlete scholarships. And so obviously that's an important way and a nice way to be able to help all of our student athletes here at Winona State.
And if people are interested, they can kind of browse all the items first before they would have to register and before they would have to put in a bid, correct?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, so if you go to that page, you can take a look. I know there's a lot of things that are out there that are still low as compared to what the value is. I think one of the only things that's really astronomically past the thing is a signed football helmet that you have from the Warrior football team, which I think is like 2 or 3 times over the proposed value of that.
Yeah, we've seen definitely some, I guess you'd call aggressive bidding for that item in particular, and some others as well. And that's great to see. I think people are certainly communicating behind the scenes and on social media and letting each other know their interest in that item and others. And we've just got a great, very broad level of benefactor that's helped us out. I think folks are donating, things like boat trips, guided pheasant hunts, obviously tangible items like the helmet and so forth. So that's really been nice to see. Folks have been able to get involved in other ways behind the scenes, making whatever donations they can, whether it's time or tangible goods. So it's been fun to watch. I do think that last probably 24 hours will be, who knows where that helmet will end up. It could end up being one of our highest selling items for sure. So, but we certainly appreciate folks finding ways to still contribute and be a part of our fundraising at a time where our student athletes, certainly it's important that we support them.